attempting this design, I gotta draw it on a post-it note. I would recommend using a marker instead of a pen. I like to clear my canvas with a metal 3.5. When it comes to laying the canvas for the design, there isn't a one-size-fits-all fade. If they have blonde hair, you're gonna wanna leave a little bit more contrast so that the design pops more. So you might wanna do a longer taper instead of a shorter one. On him, I'm fading a 1.5 into a 3. I like to start with the beak because it's the lowest part of the design. If I start there, I won't run out of room. I made the top of this beak about 1 inch long, but I would recommend going for about 1.5 inches or 2 inches long for the beak, and that'll make it a lot easier for you to put in the details later. If you tried to draw a star with a marker, first you'd start so that you could see all the points. But if you make that star smaller and smaller and smaller, it's going to start to look more and more like just a circle. The marker's too fat for you to be able to make any definitive details. The same thing happens when you're using a trimmer. Next, I like to carve out the details in the beak, like the nostril, and it's just like drawing in reverse. So I'm basically shading in the inside of the beak. After roughing out the beak, I like to start with the top of the head, and the first feather is actually right on the tip of the nose, and you don't want to make it too pronounced, otherwise it's going to look weird. But I just use the edge of my trimmer and ever so slightly give it a little bit of a corner right there. As I'm drawing those top feathers, I'm keeping the angle in mind. The eagle's logo is facing downwards about 30 degrees. I'm overshooting 30 degrees a little bit just so that I can give the feathers a little bit more contour. If you look at the angle that I'm holding my trimmers, I keep it rotated. Now, if I'm gonna do 90 degrees, it's because I'm doing more detailed work and maybe there's more curves, and it makes it so that I'm cutting less hair per movement. And then when I leave it flatter, I'm cutting more hair per movement, if that makes sense. I mean, just think about the way that the hair gets cut when you attack it with a trimmer, right? If you watched it in slow motion from your scalp and you were looking up, if a trimmer was coming down on you and it was completely flat, then all of your neighbor's hair would be cut at the same time. But if it was angled slightly, right, the more and more vertical that angle, the less and less hair gets cut when the trimmer finally does hit the surface. Whenever I find my wrist bending into an awkward position, I reposition my hands or my feet so that I can attack the area without bending my wrist too much. I don't think that there's any right or wrong way to position your hands as long as you're comfortable. When I'm shaping somebody up, sometimes I'll use my middle finger or my index finger to lean against the client's head to give myself some stability. When it comes to the dimensions on this design in particular, when I'm attacking the feathers, I work from the bottom up. I do that on this design in particular because the bottom feather is smaller than the others, and the top 3 feathers that are in the shape of an E for eagles are a lot more symmetrical. The space that I leave in between the feathers is going to bleed into the trim on the outside of the logo. That's why I'm leaving some spacing.
What does this button do?
To start the eye, first I establish the top line and work my way towards the iris. The iris is just a really small U, and to make the eye appear to have a reflection, you just put a little dot off center in the middle. The next detail I like to add to the eye is the accent that just goes downward, and I just kind of eyeball it. that the eye's taken care of, I like to work on the feather accents. It seems obvious the areas that I have to shade in, I still take my time. Now that I'm mostly satisfied with the interior, I'm going to start working on the border. I approach designs the same way I approach a haircut. I'm going to knock the things out that I know I need to do that are easy to do first. Towards the end is when I start nitpicking about details. I've noticed that when I stretch the skin, it makes the hair stand more vertically, and that makes it so that the design is more pronounced. Now that I've got the design in there, it's a good time to shape it up, and I can look at the big picture to see if there's any details I want to refine. Little neck taper makes that design pop even more because it gives the haircut contrast. A little bit of water works the same way that shave gel or lather works. It's not quite as effective, but it still gets the job done. Since he's got blonde hair, I need to use a little bit of an enhancement to make the design pop. I could use hair color, or I could use a barber pencil. And that about wraps it up. Tomorrow, we are in Dallas, and that is all that matters.